I think your book also serves as a proof to the Chinese and the Americans that Chinese people can be very spiritual, and the spirituality has a long tradition since 士大夫阶层. So the materialism is just a recent thing in China. People nowadays think of Chinese as being materialistic, but it's not the tradition.
No, I think Chinese have always been very practical people, more than materialistic. I mean, there's always been people who, for the most of Chinese history, the biggest thing in the minds of all Chinese people have been eating, having enough food to eat today. And then getting that food. You can't call that materialistic, but that's what the Chinese people have been doing for the last 5,000 years, is trying just to survive. Naturally, there's always been certain elements, and it's usually the very wealthy people who have good karma. They get born into a rich family, and then they become educated. Those are the materialists, the people who already have material welfare, riches, and so forth. But just the ordinary Chinese person, I wouldn't call them materialistic at all. In fact, most Chinese are very, very spiritual. I mean, we all have to confront the fact of our own death and the death of our loved ones, and we turn to the spiritual realm for answers. What to do about that? What do we do about the end of our own lives and the lives of our loved ones? And so that's why Taoism has always been a part of everyone's life in China. And in the last 1,000 years or 2,000 years, Buddhism has also become part of every Chinese person's life. And that's why people in America, we always think if we're religious, we say, well, I'm a Catholic, or I'm a Muslim. But in China, people don't look at religion in the same way. A Chinese person is a Buddhist and a Taoist and a Christian or whatever, because each religion offers different solutions to different problems. So the Chinese people are multi-religious, not just mono-religious.
Yes.
And of course, they've always been as spiritual as anybody else in the world. All we have to do is look at the literature they've produced, and all the remains of monasteries and pagodas and things to see evidence of that quest.
Yes, I'm very interested in the 1989 trip you went. You said some hermits were not very educated, didn't have high school diploma. Tell me more about them.
Well, obviously, these are the kind of people who weren't caught up in the modernization of China during the 30s and 40s and 50s. These are people who we would say they were devotees. The reason they were hermits is they had, at an early time in their lives, had embarked on a spiritual quest, and not on the normal path of going to school and then going to college and then getting a job. The people who were hermits that I met in 1989 were the kind of people who decided early on in life and that they were going to do this. And I didn't meet very, very few who came from families who were educated, where the parents were educated. And I only met a couple of people who had gone to college when I first went to the mountains in 1999. These were just spiritual people, devotees.
Yes.
And most of them were women.
Oh.
Because it's to become a spiritual person in China in the past, you really had to have your parents' permission. And it's much easier for a daughter to get their parents' permission than a son in the past. Nowadays, things have changed in China. And when I went in, I've gone into the mountains since 1989. Most recently, there was a documentary film called Hermits in Shi that was made about 12, 13 years ago. And when I went into the mountains on that time, I'd say more than half of all the hermits I met had graduated from college.
Mm-hmm.
Some had even had advanced degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So they were educated people.
Mm-hmm.
And more than half were men,
Yes.
not women.
Yes.
I mean, there were still many women, but also another thing, the women were educated.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the hermits in China today have a high level of education.
Right.
There's probably 60% are men, 40% are women, something like
Yes.
that. Whereas in the past, it was the opposite. 60% were women, 40% were men. And
Yes.
none of them had college degrees. So the hermit tradition is a reflection of the Chinese society. The Chinese society has changed. And so naturally, the kind of hermits you see in China have changed too.
Yes. When I think of hermits or Buddhists, I would think of Xuanzang or my friend Heng Shi, who had a PhD degree in religious studies. When I went to Berkeley Monastery, I saw those women, like older women. They don't look very educated. They're in their 60s, but they're very diligent. They do their work, they do their volunteer stuff, and they're very devoted people. I'm a more educated, so I always think, my question is, where do you think their strengths come from?
Well, it actually, their strength is a lot greater than that of modern hermits.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with being educated is you think too much.
Yes.
And you have this tradition of something has to make sense before you agree to do something. Whereas somebody who relies on the cultivation of gongda
Mm-hmm.
does so because out of belief.
Yes.
They believe. And so the young women and the older women you see at the temples in America, or that you see in China, are largely made up of women who deeply believe in the efficacy of doing good works to improve their lives, and mainly to improve the lives of those who have died, namely their husbands and their grandparents, and maybe their children.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see the people with less education simply believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in a sense, gives them a lot greater strength than a person who kind of believes, but their belief comes out of an intellectual foundation.
Yes.
They read some books.